Did you know that a little sunlight each day can be the key to your health and happiness? Yes, we're talking about vitamin D, often called the sunshine vitamin. It's not just a nutrient. It's a game changer for your bones, immunity, and even your mood. Ready to dive into the words of vitamin D? Before we jump into today's topic, check out the last videos. It's packed with awesome health tips you'll love. If you love the content, subscribe for more healthy tips. Now, without further ado, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin that your body can produce when your skin is exposed to sunlight. There are actually two types of vitamin D, which are vitamin D2, also known as ergoculciferol, and vitamin D3, also known as cholecalciferol. Vitamin D2 is found in plant sources such as mushrooms and fortified foods like some plant milks and breakfast cereals. Vitamin D3 is mainly found in animal sources like fatty fish, but can also be found in egg yolks and fortified foods like some yogurts and orange juice. Of the two types, our bodies prefer vitamin D3 over D2, so it is the type that your body will convert to the active form of vitamin D. Vitamin D has many functions in the body. The most well-known function of vitamin D is its role in maintaining normal levels of calcium in the blood by helping the absorption of calcium from the gut, reabsorption of calcium by the kidneys, as well as bone turnover and remodeling. These functions are important for the maintenance of strong and healthy bones, as well as the prevention of bone diseases like rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. But vitamin D does not just stop there. It also plays an important role in many other processes in the body, including cell growth, neuromuscular functioning, immune regulation, as well as reduction of inflammation. Now, if you are constantly getting enough sun exposure, you may think that you are getting enough vitamin D, however. According to the National Health Institute, the amount of vitamin D that can be obtained from sun exposure varies greatly depending on many factors, including geographical location, time of the day, season, weather, as well as the individual's skin pigmentation and the length of sun exposure. Hence, it is very difficult to obtain the recommended amount of vitamin D solely from sun exposure alone. This is why supplementation of vitamin D is recommended. The amount of vitamin D that you require depends on many factors, including your age. For example, infants from 0 to 12 months require 400 IU, which is international units, while children and teenagers from 1 to 18 years old require 600 IU. As we get older, the amount required decreases, and adults from 19 to 70 years old only need 600 IU. However, if you are above 70 years old, the amount required increases again to 800 IU. Now that we know the amount required, how do you know if you are getting enough vitamin D? Well, blood tests are readily available to measure the level of vitamin D in your blood. However, it's important to note that having sufficient stores of vitamin D in your body does not necessarily mean that you are getting enough vitamin D on a daily basis. So it is still important to supplement with vitamin D even if your blood levels are normal, unless you are getting enough vitamin D from your diet and sun exposure. If you are taking vitamin D supplements, how do you know if the one that you are taking is suitable for you? One common type of vitamin D supplement is the vitamin D2 or ergoculciferol. Although vitamin D2 is less preferred compared to vitamin D3 due to its lower efficacy, it is still widely used because it is cheaper to produce. For vitamin D2, it is recommended to take at least 250 micrograms or 1000 IU per day to maintain adequate vitamin D status. Another type of vitamin D supplement is the vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. Vitamin D3 is the preferred form of vitamin D because it is more biologically active than D2. Hence, lesser amounts are required to achieve the same effect. For vitamin D3, it is recommended to take 10 micrograms or 400 IU per day to maintain adequate vitamin D status. Besides supplements, vitamin D is also added to certain foods as a fortification. The rationale behind this is to increase the overall vitamin D intake of the population and reduce the number of people who are deficient in vitamin D. In Singapore, vitamin D is added to several commonly consumed foods such as milk and milk alternatives, as well as some breakfast cereals. The amount of vitamin D added to these foods can vary, so do check the product labels to find out how much vitamin D is added to the food that you are consuming. Are there any risks of getting too much vitamin D? Since vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, this means that it is stored in our body fat. As such, the body does not have a specific limit to how much vitamin D can be stored. Hence, unlike water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C, there is no excess vitamin D that can be excreted out through urine. Because of this, it is possible to have too much vitamin D in our bodies, leading to a condition known as hypervitaminaceous D. Symptoms of hypervitaminaceous D include the excessive thirst, frequent urination, as well as nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Long-term, this can lead to complications like kidney stones, high calcium in the blood, as well as calcification of tissues that should not be calcified, like the blood vessels. In a study done by the National Institutes of Health, it was estimated that the tolerable upper intake level of vitamin D is at around 100 micrograms, or 4,000 IU. Hence, the general advice is to keep your daily intake of vitamin D below this amount to avoid getting too much vitamin D. Do note that this figure is based on healthy individuals. Individuals with kidney or liver disease may have a lower threshold for vitamin D toxicity and should hence take lesser amounts of vitamin D. Supplementation. Now that we have learned about the different sources of vitamin D and the amount that we require, let's put it all together by looking at an example. To keep it simple, let us assume that you do not want to take any vitamin D supplements and would like to obtain your vitamin D solely from food. For breakfast, you can have 250 ml of vitamin D fortified milk, which provides 1.5 micrograms or 6 micrograms of vitamin D. Then for lunch, you can have 30 grams of cooked salmon, which provides 1.2 micrograms or 5 micrograms of vitamin D. And for dinner, you can have 30 grams of cooked sardines, which provides 2.6 micrograms or 10.5 micrograms of vitamin D. Adding all the amounts together, you will be getting a total of 5.3 micrograms or 21.5 micrograms of vitamin D, which is more than the recommended amount for adults. For the sake of variety, you can replace the salmon with 30 grams of cooked tuna, which also provides a similar amount of vitamin D as you can see. Obtaining sufficient vitamin D from food is actually quite achievable. However, you may need to supplement with vitamin D if you are avoiding certain types of food or if you are not eating the recommended amount of food listed above. For example, vegans may need to supplement with vitamin D, as vitamin D is mainly found in animal sources, and it is unlikely that you will be getting sufficient amounts from plant sources alone. Another example is if you have malabsorption issues like inflammatory bowel disease, which makes it harder for your body to absorb nutrients from food. You may also need to supplement with vitamin D. So remember, vitamin D is an essential vitamin that you need to get from your diet and sun exposure. Although our bodies can produce vitamin D when exposed to sunlight, it is difficult to obtain the recommended amount of vitamin D from sun exposure alone. Hence, supplementation of vitamin D is recommended. For most individuals, the preferred form of vitamin D is vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. Supplementation of vitamin D is important for the maintenance of strong and healthy bones, as well as many other bodily functions. The amount of vitamin D that you require depends on many factors, including your age. While the upper limit of how much vitamin D is safe is not well established, it is generally advised not to exceed 100 micrograms or 4,000 IU per day to avoid complications due to excess vitamin D. Hence, always read the labels of the supplements or fortified foods that you are taking to ensure that the amount of vitamin D that you are taking does not exceed this amount. Do you take vitamin D supplements? If yes, do let me know in the comments below what brand that you are taking and why did you choose that particular brand. And if you are getting your vitamin D solely from food and sun exposure, what kind of food that you are eating to meet your requirements. That's all for today's episode on vitamin D. In our next episode, we'll be talking about vitamin E. So stay tuned and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already so that you don't miss it. Thank you for staying till the end, and I'll see you in the next video.